Hello, I'm Ray Gomez in Caracas, Venezuela. Here are the morning news. Since 1 year now, Mexican authorities capture one of the most sought-after drug lords in history. Many continue to question the impact the arrest had on the country's high levels of organized crime and violence. Our correspondent Clayton Kahn brings us more.
It has been a year since elements of the Mexican military captured the most wanted and arguably most powerful drug lords, Joaquin Guzman Loera, or El Chapo. Yet many Mexican citizens say little has changed.
They continue to operate, and here, where the capture of the most important drug boss was, even though he's now locked up, the cartel's still working.
It was on February 20th, 2014 when the nearly mythical drug kingpin was caught, an event considered to be a media coup for the government of President Enrique Peña Nieto and his pre-party.
The capture is a clear sign of the effort we are making in the country to disarm organized crime groups that affect us throughout the country.
Yet, while the authorities congratulated themselves, this past year has seen an explosion of social protest against the government's drug war model that has produced as a fallout the enforced disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students or a growing number of civilian casualties in regions where the state is dysfunctional.
With this institutional weakness, the true powers that be, whether they are legal, such as corporations, or illegal, such as organized crime groups, take control of the state apparatus for their own ends, which aren't public ends.
Critics also point beyond a weak state and a rule of law to the government's strategy of tackling narco-trafficking with the military. They argue that a policy of using the armed forces as a police force produces widespread human rights abuses.
The militarization strategy is alarming. It's hard to understand how a state can do such things across the country without even taking provisions to protect the lives of its citizens.
Although Mexico has announced in recent weeks budget cuts to social programs designed to reduce crime, the Interior Minister assured that the austerity measures provoked by the drop in international oil prices would not affect public security funding. Clayton Kahn de la Sur, Mexico City.
And staying in Mexico, the U.S. transnational Coca-Cola reported a 55% profit drop in the last quarter. However, the company has claimed public insecurity as its excuse to close its factory in Guerrero State. The factory is located in an area where 13 organized crime comments operate. But the company insists that closing the plant and leaving workers unemployed is due to social protests over the forced disappearance of 43 students in Ayotzinapa. According to Coca-Cola's most recent financial report, the sales have dropped by 1% last year, even though Mexico is the largest consumer per capita worldwide. Private investors block attempts to increase the green areas in Lima, Peru. Our correspondent Arael Mora has more.
Lima features beaches along the coast and urban areas, starting on top of a cliff 50 meters above the sea level. The city has grown without an overall plan, and many areas lack green spaces. Some neighborhoods take advantage of the cliff by the ocean front to create plazas and parks for citizens. However, private housing developments are wanting to block public green spaces.
It's clear that there's going to be many people interested in using this space to sell it to the highest bidder. Let's say that if you have money, you would want ocean views and basically own a piece of the cliff for yourself. But the concept of exclusivity and the concept of public normally don't go hand in hand.
According to urban researcher Mariana Alegre, because of the high levels of inequality in Peru, many voters are worried first about basic needs rather than urban development.
Urban inequality is increasing more and more. The difference in socioeconomic terms is such that people who live on the outskirts of the city with a moderate income are worried about their housing situation, their food, the education of their children, and they forget about what is happening with the parks or the trees and even public transport.
The city currently has a regulation prohibiting private developments on top of the cliff, but many buildings have been constructed regardless. Local neighborhoods benefit from private developments by charging them taxes. Also, Accusations of a corrupt relationship between developers and politicians are rampant. Reporting from Lima, Peru for Telesur, Rael Mora.
And Palestinian residents have made their first drone. Israel has responded by declaring an emergency. We go to our correspondent Noor Harrison for more.
On Saturday evening, Israeli forces claimed that 2 Palestinian hand-made drones had entered the Israeli airspace and that one of the drones landed in an open area close to the Israeli-Gazan borders. Israeli media reported that shortly after spotting the drones, an emergency status was announced in several cities of southern Israel, including Ashkelon and Ashdod. Al-Qassam Brigade's Hamas's militant wing did not comment on the incident, and Palestinian resistance fighters refused to give a statement regarding the news.
We are very proud of this achievement. Who would ever think that Palestine would have its own drones? It's handmade from the simple materials that the resistance found. Despite the siege and the lack of everything, here in Gaza we are steadfast and face all hardships, creating weapons of our own.
During the recent Gaza celebrations for the 27th anniversary of Hamas movement's founding, Al-Qassam Brigade resistance fighters joined the rally, showing off their military capabilities, including rockets and the first handmade Palestinian drone that was called Ababil. This drone was created as part of the resistance to the latest Israeli summer offensive on Gaza. It was made from the basic materials that are available in Gaza, with 2 security cameras attached to the drone's front. Noor Harrison, Telesur TV, Gaza.
On Sunday, the Israeli government caused floodings in the center of the Gaza Strip. Residents were evacuated without warning. Israel opened up its dams in the early morning, causing floods of 3.5 meters in height over Hausen. People from Gaza are constantly victims of such abuses. In Bangladesh, 6 people have been found after a ferry capsized on Sunday. It collided with a trawler on Padma River. Rescue workers are still searching for bodies as authorities believe 140 people were on board. Padma River is one of the largest ones in Bangladesh. And here in South, Australia's right-wing Prime Minister Tony Abbott announced that there would be a national security crackdown that could deny welfare payments to people seen as potential threats, strip the passports of those with dual nationality, and curb travel overseas. Prime Minister Abbott said personal freedoms would have to be curtailed to find what he called a rapidly crowding threat for groups such as Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. There have been no terrorist attacks in Australia, but the country was involved in supporting the U.S. attacks on Iraq. The government is locking up refugees in virtual concentration camps.
When he applied for legal aid.
By the way, we end the morning news with China's New Year Twilight Parade in Sydney, Australia. The parade, the biggest one of its kind held outside Asia, attracted more than 100,000 spectators along the street Sunday. The parade featured traditional Chinese performances, including dances, acrobatics, martial arts, puppet shows, and drum beating. There were floats from the Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Thai communities. More on this and other stories on our website, telesurtv.net/English. I'm Ray Gomez. Have a nice day.